Hello everybody, welcome to another review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the brand new album by the Aggrotech industrial metal band Combichrist with their brand new record, Combichrist, or CMBCRST if you want to pronounce that. Combichrist. So anyway, this is the new album that I just forgot dropped, and I gave this one a listen, and I must say the hour and 36 minute mark definitely had me interested. So the album is pretty much 14 tracks, and there is a second half which I believe was just kind of bonus stuff, and that's kind of how I feel with it. The second half is more instrumentation as you kind of go from at the gate hallway to cast a shadow, following these more creepy ambient sounds. It feels like they're trying to drive a narrative just through this, and then as soon as you go into the morgue, for some reason it just builds up with some like kind of classic techno electronic elements just to stir a little bit more interest, because you don't want to listen to 9 tracks of just creepy sounds. I think it sounds interesting, but there's a little bit more to it than that. It kind of just tells its own story. It doesn't need to be there, but it's kind of cool, I guess. I just don't really consider any of these to be songs, especially in comparison to the actual record itself. You start off with Children of Violence on the main concept of this record, which it didn't pull me in. I must say it's one of the weakest tracks. I think just the kind of electronic direction they had for this didn't necessarily grip me until we got to D for Demonic. Even then, I didn't necessarily think the first half of this record had much strong material, and I found that is once you reach through the Raven's Eyes is when the album picks up. Like, there's a lot of great techno sounds, a lot of great instrumentation. I think the riffs are also quite, let's say, they quite pull you in. It pulls you into sort of like a trancey sort of feel. They definitely grip you. They definitely have this catchy element to it. And I even think the more you dive through this record, the more unique ideas is opening up. Not My Enemy, I just like the little bit of distortion on the vocals with the little vocoder electronic effect to just go into some pretty nice uncleans. I think the uncleans on this record, I'm actually surprised it's not as heavy on the vocals as I thought, but I think they definitely focused on a good blend of Aggrotech and industrial metal for what they want to go here. Some great songs lurk on the second half, as I mentioned. Sonic Witch, I just love the way this one opens up and just hits you just with like a sonic wave of fun. There's nothing else I can say for that. Wolves Eating Wolves is definitely one of the heavier ones, and I think the way that they just drive this with probably some of the best effects and some of the best sounds they brought to this record is definitely one that's pulled my interest and managed to turn my opinion on the record around pretty much. And I'm pretty happy with that, because there's definitely some good stuff in the first half, but I think the problem with the first half is it's trying to build up to some of their better stuff in the record, but I just find that the first few just kind of feel like the same thing in some cases. Like, D for Demonic is good. Heads Off has probably one of the more catchy refrains, but I just find tracks like that, Only Death is Immortal, just to kind of go through one by one. Like, as soon as you're listening to it, it just goes to the next song and you don't really notice because it just feels too similar. But the more you explore, the more natural and unique the record feels, and that's what I like about it, is you're definitely getting some really good material the more you dive into this record, which is weird because most of the time you get albums that are front loaded, where the best stuff is at the start to pull your interest in, and then it just kind of fizzles out into a weaker, more bland experience. But I feel like that's the opposite here. It's definitely an album where the more you go through, the better tracks you get. But I will say, around the halfway through the Raven's Eyes and Wolves Eating Wolves definitely stir this album into a really fun direction, and the album just keeps shooting up for some pretty good big highs there. The production sounds great. I just love the techno aggression blending into just some of the best industrial metal that I think Combichrist have put out there, especially in the more recent periods. But yeah, this isn't necessarily the most groundbreaking record from the band, but they definitely take elements from some other genres. I get a little bit of metalcore, but obviously still in the more industrial aesthetic. The way that the elements, just everything's just got this mechanized, heavy machinery sound is definitely what really drives the record further. Industrial metal does a lot of that, but I think Combichrist putting their electronic spin definitely reminds me of, say, something like cyberpunk, to then put that into a hydraulic press and squish the shit out of it is just how I feel listening to this. It definitely gives me a mixture of bands like Rabbit Junk. Apart from Rabbit Junk, kind of go for a more bouncy electronic sound, and they're not really Aggrotech. They're just more of an industrial metal band that has a lot of electronic components, whereas this band kind of relies more on the heavier side of their sound, going for something a lot more harsher to the ears, but also giving you a lot more of an electronic palette to really sprinkle across and give you a interesting listen. Combichrist definitely is a big name in the electro-industrial Aggrotech movement. They're quite an iconic band due to it, and probably one of the biggest acts, and you could even say that they're like the grandfathers of the genre. They definitely have made this something that feels very unique to them, and I'm enjoying what this record brings. I didn't know what to feel with the album kind of being more of a self-titled thing, because I always assume the self-titled records are trying to be very different from everything else, but it definitely sounds like Combichrist, but there's also some newer spins and fresh ideas that makes this feel original. My opinion was that I thought it was okay, but I actually grew the more I listened to this to liking it, and I think while you do have some rougher tracks towards the start, Immortal is made up with some of the later stuff on there, but where I stand, I'm going to give this album a 3 out of 5. I feel like Combichrist could put out a more consistent record. They could have a lot better ideas in some of the tracks, especially the first few, like Children of Violence. I think is interesting. It's definitely one of the more unique tracks, but it doesn't necessarily work for a great intro as something later in the album could be. And that is my review. Hope you'll enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.